Welcome to the Live Wildly podcast, a space where we explore how to live our wildest expressions while nourishing our hearts. Here we come together to share about our life paths, authentic expressions, and heart's wisdom with one another. We cover all things motherhood, spirituality, adventure, health and wellness, and more. I'm your host, Olivia Ashley, a mama, intuitive, and seeker of a joyful, inspired life. Let's dare to live wildly together. Hello, lovelies, and welcome to another episode of the Live Wildly podcast. I'm so excited you're here and listening. And today we bring you part 2 with Amanda Lorin. So if you haven't listened, go back, check it out. We released part 1 just 2 weeks ago with the lovely Amanda Lorin, who is a student of the Akasha, and she hails from New Zealand and just brings such warm, deep wisdom to your ears. And this was such a fun conversation, just getting to riff and ask her lots of different questions, being an intuitive of what her life experience has been, what tips she has, how she's made friendships, navigated feeling like, almost the black sheep of sorts in her family. That I can very much relate to. And so it just felt like I have known her forever, and this episode follows up on the first part, which is where we touched about her Maori ancestry, her intuitive abilities as a channel, what is a channel, her connection to the land and ancestry, and how that plays into her life and her life's path and the work she does. So today we are jumping right back into that conversation, which is why I say go give it a listen. And don't worry if you don't, you have plenty of time to go back. If you jump in and you go, whoa, this was really great, there's one more episode for you. So today we're going to talk all about timelines, how you can work with them to face fears and trust yourself and what they are. I feel like that word is used a lot, and she gives a really great explanation of it. We talk about fears and facing fears, especially around imperfections, and sisterhood wounding, how she's had it as well, how she thought most women have probably had it in some regard, and how she overcame it to create lasting friendships. We also talk about the power of simple rituals, such as your breath and how it can support you. And overall, you're just going to feel seen and empowered to tackle any tasks, fears, dreams that you have. And it's just insightful and it feels good. And I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did getting to interview and spend time with Amanda. And thank you, Amanda, again for coming on and sharing yourself with all of us. And so that's what we're here for today. And in my life, if I can give a little update, we are preparing for a 2-week-long road trip and vacation. I have not gone anywhere really. I mean, I've had little trips and things, but we have not gone anywhere as a family since I returned from maternity leave to my full-time day job. And that feels kind of wild. That was back in March, and now we're nearing September. So it's time. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I have not gone on a road trip like this, I think, ever with a baby this little. We avoided it truthfully with the other 2, and we did airplane rides. And instead, though, with all of us, a family of 5, that's a lot of tickets. And we said, let's just drive. Let's make a trip out of it. And silly us, we're heading down to Phoenix, Arizona, because Stephen has some family there. Thankfully, they have a pool, but when I look at the weather, it's going to be over 100. It's looking like 105 to 110, which we have not even touched here in Colorado. I don't even know what that's going to feel like. All of you that are already feeling that or have been in that, holy moly, kudos to you. Send me your tips. But I'm really excited to just unplug, step away, get some reset, some family time, because Steve and I have been hustling, right? And I use that word carefully, like we are hustling in the best of ways. We are spending time with our kids, making sure they're good, making sure we're good, we're working, we're creating, we're taking care of ourselves, feeding ourselves, all the things, right? If you have kids or just you're alive today, you know that list can be really long and feel really strenuous sometimes, or I like to affectionately refer to my life as like Groundhog Day. I feel like I'm just repeating the same things over and over and over, and at least I like the things I'm doing, so there's that. But I also am really, really feeling into this point of my life where it's like I'm coming full circle. It feels very similar to how I was feeling before I had Lily and before I even had kids, of this massive, who was my old self? Who am I now? What do I want to bring forward? What do I want in my life? And back then, I really was looking just for healing, for peace, for acceptance within myself, for stability, rootedness, confidence. I lacked all of that, and I felt so ill. I was deep in the throes of alcohol and drugs and just getting life, and my first job and relationships and just wildly messy, right? But also holding it down. And then Lily came and she was that piece. I didn't know it at the time, but she unraveled this whole new expression, whole new piece of myself. And I feel like after having stoned and now going back to work, kind of settling into my life, creating these creations like this podcast that feels so juicy and good and like heartful, I am also faced with this curiosity, this feeling like, whoa, it's time again to say who and what was my old self this last decade, raising babies, healing myself, still healing, always will be healing, growing, learning, nurturing, nourishing. Those would be words I would describe: transformation, the power of grief, internal power, everything that I've been going through, and that I feel good. Like I have my head on my shoulders, and now I'm stepping into full embodiment, expression, heartfulness, wildness. How do I want to live wildly? What do I really want? Being in a partnership, and I've been asking a lot of my married friends, especially with kids, how do you find yourself? Or do you have differing dreams than your partner? And I'm not saying that I do, but I'm really in this space of wanting to unravel it all. If I can pull every little thread out within myself, I know what I thought I've wanted, or what I've been told, or when I look back as a kid, what I've wanted or felt. But now, who am I? What am I setting myself up for in this next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? These decades go fast, and I just entered my 30th. I'm 31 this year, and where am I sailing my ship to? Noting that it will change, and I'm welcome to the ebb and the flow and the storms and the sunshine and the rainbows, and it's all going to come. And I'm curious if any others out there are feeling this, are just feeling this tethering and untethering of, like I'm a snake shedding its skin. And that's what I'm hoping, going to Phoenix and going to see lots of other places and having the time and space. 2 weeks is so short, but just if I can start to have some space to think, to realize, to write down, to enjoy and learn and be inspired by. There's a lot of people that I'm truly inspired by at the moment that I'm watching, and I'm like, I'm gonna figure out how you did what you did, but in my own way. And it's going to work, and it will be magic, and I trust that. So that's where I am. That's what's on my heart today. And I just hope you are well, that you are navigating life and finding how you live wildly, find presence and balance and community. And please reach out, talk, let me know how you're doing, what's on your heart. I'd love to hear from you. I am moving everything to my main Instagram page, which is Wildly Olivia. And my podcast page will still be up there on Instagram for a bit, but I'm probably just going to be mostly posting on Wildly Olivia now, trying to just narrow in my containers. But you can reach me there or on my website. Check in, let me know. And I hope I can support you. Now might be a perfect time for an Akashic record reading, especially as we go into fall. I feel like now is the time to start to integrate the year, start to set your sights up for when the new year comes. Just get yourself ready. And if I can support you through a reading, reach out, book one with me. Everything will be linked below. So let's tune into this beautiful episode with Amanda Lorin, part 2. Enjoy. Let me know what you think. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I do want to start shifting a little bit into some other questions. And the first one is, I want to talk about timelines. I don't know why this came forward, but this was something that was brought of, let's talk about it. What are these, and how does one shift and or choose timelines, and or like why are timelines even important to understand and utilize? It's a huge question, but let's go there.
My counter question is, what part of timelines do you want to talk about? There's so many ways to to navigate timelines.
Yeah. And I feel like I've used that word before too. And I have an understanding to some sense of, I see timelines almost as with every kind of decision you make or thing you choose or not choose, you can shift or put yourself on a certain timeline. Like a door gets
Mm-hmm.
closed and you're opening a door. But I think this is a word that gets tossed around a lot. And I want to really just get your wisdom and grounding around what needs to come forward. Where should someone start if they're interested in this, and or explain it better than I just did on a deeper level?
So the understanding wisdom that is shared with me often when it comes to timelines, and I do describe timelines in this way to people when it comes up in readings and stuff like that. So if you were to see your life as a tabletop, just everything is out on the table, everything that you could experience in this life at any given time, that is what is here available for you whenever. And the timeline is like you being a pencil or a pen. If you see an eyeball on the pen, is your consciousness, right? And so what is happening as you're moving around the table, your consciousness is choosing. The timeline that we are creating, and even in this given moment now, is that we have chosen to come into space to be on this podcast together because that is what was on our table. And so from here, the decisions that come from post podcast recording is going to also move us around the table. And that is what I consider myself personally as the timeline. So at any given moment, no matter what, like I could stop this podcast right now and be like, Olivia, that's it, I'm done. Don't put it out. I don't want to do this no more, right? And then so that's a decision that takes this out of my consciousness, and then I've chosen a different way of moving. Or I'd be like, yep, go forward. Everything's going to be great. Let's just go. Whatever happens after that is going to be us moving through the timeline. So in any moment, shifts are always happening. There is always a decision to be made. And that even goes into say with when we get like readings and wisdom from people, is that we can only really be given wisdom on the timeline that we are on, or a possible timeline that we can shift into should we choose. Right? Like as if a psychic or a reader sat there and told you every single possibility in your life, they'd be there for hours. And so it's a matter of how do you want to live? Like where there's always a fork in the road. There's always a decision. How did you want to show up today? Amanda showed up to the podcast recording today, even though she wasn't sure if she could, but she did. So there was my timeline shifting. I shifted into this timeline as opposed to me having to go, can I reschedule for another time? So I don't know if that makes sense, but the way that I see timelines is really just in any given moment, we get to choose what part of the table that we want to experience. And it's all available all the time. It's all in the field, but it's only through our consciousness in this life and this human that we are in right now that we can choose and make our way around the table. I'm not sure if that fully answers like a timeline exactly, but it's almost like with the way that I see it is possibility, is choice and possibility. And then if we were to go into, I'm like, hold on, do we really want to go that far into timelines?
Whatever you're up for.
Like, because there's also another layer on this when we go into like past life, parallel life timeline.
Let's go
situation.
there. Let's go there. Yes. If
Okay.
it's not too wordy or long. Yeah.
It might be, I don't know. Let's
It's
see.
okay.
Um, okay, so in this current moment in time, we have this obsession. Mm, well, you know how you see that there are some words that get thrown around a lot. The another word that's thrown around a lot is past or past life. And so there are two ways to experience this that I have been shown, which is the past life where we see things as linear, or there is a parallel where we understand that everything's actually happening all at once. So a past life of being in 1963 is also happening at the same time as the life happening in 2023, but it's also happening in the life in 3008 and 823, right? Everything is happening all at once. So when it comes to timelines, again, that also gets to play into question, like, are we seeing life in linear? Or are we seeing life as a laterally? Is that laterally? Yeah.
Yeah, almost it's
So,
like a circle I see, right? Like that more
mm,
cyclical of everything is happening all at once, and yet it's just us experiencing it right here. And it almost brings me to the, like you said, you can have it's past life, right? We can see it that way. But I've also been shown and told it's like our souls can be fractal almost in a way
mhm,
where, again, yes, it's so trippy to think about, but like I could have 80 1,000 plus different points where this oversoul of mine is living out all of these different lives right now in time and space, and all in this one moment that is feeding up into this higher understanding and being. And like that just trips me out. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't that be? I guess the goal is to tap in and learn how to connect to all that wisdom and all that information. But yes, that was helpful. And I think there's so much there that we could touch. But you're right that not only are we accessing timelines, but we are accessing lifetimes in a way.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, laterally. Let's see the oversoul and everything happening all at once. That's how I get to see it as well. And so if we were to look at timelines again, then if this concept were to be true, because we can't prove anything, but this is how I choose to see it, then that makes our table very, very big, doesn't it? Like if we would just put our this human life on the table, like okay, that's a reasonably sized dinner table. I can see myself walking around that. But if everything is possible all at once, which is quantumly true, then the table is really, really big because there is those 1,000 lifetimes all happening at once. There is this oversoul looking over everything, and on top of that, I could be a fractal of the soul. You could be a fractal of the same soul, and we could actually be talking to each other. So there's also that perspective too, where we realize that we're all actually a fractal of consciousness experiencing itself over and over and over again across lifetimes, laterally, and then like past, future, however you want to see it. And so are we ever separate? No, we're not. Because there really is this, in my belief, there really is this big umbrella consciousness just throwing itself down at earth and into the multiverse, like, oh, I'm going to experience that, I'm going to experience that, I'm going to experience that. Yes, we are usually put together with familiar soul energy, and whether that is within our own lineage or within our own family or a friend unit. But at the same time, we are all still just consciousness experiencing itself over and over and over again. And so that just speaks into the reflection of each other too. But that's why when we get triggered, we are often like experiencing ourselves through that person, through their words and through what they are doing. And then when we see jealousy, when we're jealous of someone, we're actually experiencing their radiance within ourselves because that radiance is also ours. We just didn't know how to tap into that. So it makes it seem like that person is better than us, but that's not actually true. We're actually pretty showing that I have that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Is that where I was going with that?
Oh, what a big, yeah, like boom. It's always those moments of we're such tiny little ants thinking we're so like here and important. And then you have this conversation and you're like, whoa, okay, where am I planted? I love it though. I think it's
Mm.
just a really intriguing. And I believe that this is all true in reality as well. It's an intriguing idea, though, especially if you've never heard it. And I want to get a little bit more deep around your own experience being an intuitive in the sense of how have you found showing up authentically and having discernment? Like authenticity and discernment are the two words that I really wanted to bring up and just see how that has come up on your path. I think for a lot of us, and I'm so curious if you had this, we might hide in our spiritual closet, that this might take a long time to feel like we can authentically show up as our whole huge intuitive self, and this knowing and how we share that. And then also this discernment piece of the things we receive or when we share, or discerning of just in our life in general. Can you share about that being human and as especially as a highly intuitive being, and what's this been like on your path?
I can even say now, like today, that although this intuitive life is a natural way of being for me, I'm still often afraid to show myself. I have lived through many moments of judgment and misunderstanding and people leaving my life because I was different. And when I spoke at the beginning of this, I talked about how I shut it out in my teens and then early 20s before the book fell off the shelf. And that was a lot to do with me not willing to be authentic. I didn't want to show who I really was because it was to other people, it was weird. Like I thought differently, I felt differently. I but I just wanted to be like everybody else. And so there's been a big journey of unraveling, pulling off the mask. I remember an argument I had with a boyfriend, a previous boyfriend, and he said to me, because I was starting to come out of my shell and be more like me, and he said to me, "This isn't the person who you said you were in the beginning. The person who you are right now is not who you were before, and I feel like you lied to me." And I was really upset about that. I'm like, well, I've always been this person. But he was right. He was 100% right because I had built up myself to hide behind this mask of a human because I wanted people to like me for that version because they all liked that version. And then when I brought out who I truly was, it made people squirm. And that's where I've had to, over the last 5 years, definitely more so in the last two, really, really work with that because I also held on to that for a while too and used it as like a defense mechanism. So authenticity has been challenging. I've always been told since I was young I was the weird one, always been the weird one. And allowing myself to be the weird one has been probably the hardest challenge of my life. And like how we were talking before about being a channel being my greatest gift, but also my biggest challenge has also played into that as well. Like it's not easy being somebody who knows so much, but yet can't say well how they know it or where they know it from, have got no proof of it, and then being told weird because we just know things. And I know I'm not the only person that goes through this. It's a thing that's a lot of people out there that have had experiences like this where we're just not we're too afraid to be ourselves. Authenticity is like the biggest. I actually feel it's like it's a collective issue right now too, because we've been also taught in society to hide away. We've had it from when we were younger. Our parents have had it. Like I've even had issues with my own parents and how I raise my daughter because I'm not letting her be stifled. It stops with me, right? Like I'm sheltering her from all of the stuff that I went through as a child, and they don't understand her. And it's like that's okay. You don't need to. But she gets to be her authentic self, and I'm not letting anything stop that. And then, of course, there's that Mama Bear thing coming where I would see her in her authenticity and it make people uncomfortable. And I want to shelter her from the judgment of others. And at the same time, going, you have to let her figure this out too. So, authenticity for me has been big on my motherhood journey in making sure that my daughter knows that it's amazing to be herself and to also have the tools to regulate through people judging her. And that also comes into discernment, where it's discernment has been, for about 4 years. I don't even know what that word properly meant. Couldn't even quite grasp what discernment was until a couple of years ago. And it's just discernment for me has been has been a journey, because sometimes it's so much easier to just do what everyone else says to do and be what everyone else says to be and just squash everything in. And it's been a real lesson over the last couple of years in terms of relationship, in terms of business, in terms of even being an intuitive, this discernment journey, because I would let anybody in. I would let anything happen and wonder why I kept coming up to the same sorts of situations that needed to be looked through. And being an intuitive as well, there's a big piece around inner discernment and trust, because like you get shown a lot. You get shown a lot of sorts of things, and sometimes you don't always trust that you're seeing what you're seeing, or you're hearing what you're hearing. So the discernment piece of, am I going to trust myself, or am I going to let the self-doubt crumble me, even though this person is here for guidance? And then around how to communicate the messages in a way where it's not going to send the person into a spiral, or be delivered in a way that they're going to understand and embody and take on as an option to move forward in life, and not have it derail them. Because I mean, spirit can be pretty like honest, and the words that they choose often aren't they're not usually words you want to go and say to other people. Yeah, like I'll give you an example, and I know it's okay to share this because I won't go into full detail, but there was a friend that I had that she was pregnant at the time, and around the time her baby was due, it was like August or September or something. And I did this reading, and there was like this card that came out, and it was like a card around death and heartache. And then like there was this whole unraveling in my brain, and the human had to go, okay, we need to communicate this so she doesn't think this is about her baby. Like it wasn't, thank God. And and it was communicated very well, but it's in those moments like your human goes to the worst case scenario. Because I knew that baby, when that baby was going to be born, and then August there was like this death and loss card come through. I was like, oh hell no, So I had to really tap into myself, and I sat there and I'm like, okay, what is this message really trying to say here? Because human wise, we could take this on a whole other level and just destroy something. But that's when the discernment had to come through and go, all right, let's break this down. Let's sit with this one and unravel it how it needs to be unraveled, not how the human wants to unravel it.
That makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. And those are really good examples. And thank you for sharing that, because you're totally right. It is hard to discern, and it's hard to trust our linear brain or ego, whatever it can come in and share perspectives, or we question or we doubt. And something that I really adore about you is, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but you've had a podcast and you were very honest to say, this does not feel authentic right now, or I'm not showing up in the way that I thought I wanted to, or I'm not sure where this is. And I just am so curious, when you face these, I mean, that is one of the most empowering thing I think anyone could do, is say, I've started this, doesn't feel right, and I'm trusting that. I mean, like, whoa, that's huge. And I commend you for that hugely. But I am curious too, on the flip side of, so you talked about a little bit, but like fears or fear of imperfection or things that have shown up in your life or your creative pursuits, how do you manage that and move through it? So I know in readings, I know like you've learned to discern, and how do you show up and how do you share this? I think that's such an art form. But if you could share a little bit about how yourself have you dealt with your own fears or imperfections and moved through, because I think this is where a lot of us in the creative realm, the entrepreneurship, can get stuck and say, it's just not worth it, or this fear is too big, and so I'm just going to stop, versus that, no, this is my truth. This is what feels right, and I'm going to follow. There's that difference. If you can just share about that.
Sure. So in my experience, I've had to just understand and accept that fear doesn't go away. The little voice that speaks to me, this is my own personal journey. Some people that I have no idea what it's like to live without fear. So if you're someone out there that doesn't have fear, like teach me. But for the meantime, I've learned to just regulate it. I I can understand what it's saying. I've taught myself to see fear as an invitation. Like, okay, what is this fear telling me is true? And so what is the other side of that? So what am I trying to hold myself back from? And in the case of like reading, there are still moments where I'm like, oh my God, like, does this even make sense? Like, especially if you're reading for someone who's very stoic and they're just looking at you, they're not saying anything, they're not giving anything away. You're like, oh my gosh, what if none of this lands? But it's like that's when I have had to step into myself and go, you know what? They haven't said, Amanda, you're full of shit. So, like, I must be on the right path because they haven't said anything, so they haven't said anything. It's that no news is good news sometimes. So, yeah, like for me, the fear does come through, and it does like to sit there and toy with me. But I've just learned to see it from a different perspective. Like if I'm fearing something, maybe I'm onto something. If this message feels big and I feel like I'm not going to get it right, then I'm probably going to get it spot on. And yeah, like that goes with pretty much anything in life. Um, moving through resistance, moving through doubt. I just question everything now. I've trained myself to see it from a perspective of what does it actually mean? What does it actually mean though? Like I could turn around and just cancel everything and just hide away and hermit for the rest of my life. That would be amazing. Like how cool would that be just to lie in bed for forever? Like not really, but at the time it just feels like that's the only option. But at the same time, it's like, what is this trying to teach me? And like going into the podcast, like for those that are listening, it is still on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or something. It is still there if you want to listen to it. But you're right. I did decide at the end of last year, beginning of this year, that it didn't feel right for me at the time. And it still hasn't come back yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I will admit there was a lot of mental stuff that went through. Like my body was like, no, but my conditioning, my doubt. So my whole life, people have told me, Amanda, you always start things but don't finish them. You're fickle, you're flaky because you always start things but you never finish them. But it's come into being around, mid 30s that I've realized that's actually my superpower because I do know when to walk away. But it doesn't stop the guilt from coming. It doesn't stop the disappointment, like, oh, there I go again. I didn't finish another thing, or I started this and I walked away again. And I've copped a lot of flack in my entire life for that, including most recent was May last year when I had a family member who I thought loved me turn around and say to another family member that I was an airhead and that they felt sorry for my child for having me as a mother because I didn't fit into the box, the society box, right? So I started things, I didn't finish them. I couldn't hang around at a job for very long, like a corporate type of job at the time, whatever. And it's because it's my superpower. Because I know when to walk away and I know to not let fear drown me because I know what it really is. And I choose to see it as an invitation. So if that's something for people to walk away with, like when you feel fear, when you feel anxious, talk to it. What is it trying to tell you? What is it inviting you? Where is the medicine within that? Because if there wasn't anything for you to learn from, it wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be showing up for you.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing all about that. And I love that that's your superpower. Heck yeah, it is. Keep on keeping on. You're doing a great job. And you just have
Keep
to be
quitting.
you. Yeah, keep quitting, keep shifting, keep trusting, right? Like, how dare that person in a way? But also, you take it and go, nope, not right, not truth. That can be your truth. I'm going to keep on keeping on. But that makes me think about people in lives and how some people can just be so supportive, but others can be so terribly just narcissistic or whatever. Choose your word, it doesn't support you. I'm really curious to talk about friendship, especially with other women. How have you found and maintained friendships that really feel whole? And have you found that, right? I'm just curious. I come from a lot of feminine, like family wounding and the I guess, yeah, feminine, female side of things. And it took me a long time to overcome and face this. What has this been like for you? Did you have anything like that? And just, yeah, as someone who I feel like you're very embodied, you're very open, and it's like you seem like you have many supportive friendships. I would just love to hear how this journey has been for you.
I feel that every woman has some kind of sisterhood wounding ingrained in her DNA. It's a thing that we all carry. So in some way, I feel like we've all experienced something, at least something. But yeah, like you, I've grown up with some massive wounding, especially on my mother's side. So yeah, I've grown up around gossipy, nasty, I'm trying not to swear, you know. Um,
It's okay. You're welcome to. Really get that
okay,
feeling though, right? Like I think that
yeah,
embodies what you're trying to say.
yeah. Well, the word was bitchy is what I was trying not to say. But yeah, those sort of archetypes, those sort of like that's what friendships, women friendships were modeled to me growing up. They were nasty. They were putting other women down in order to raise yourself up sort of situation. And they would always feel good. People would always feel good about gossiping about someone else. And so naturally, growing up in that, I took that on as okay, this is how I be friends with people. And that is how I lived for a long time, where I would gossip and I would be bitchy and I would be nasty and I would put people down in order to raise myself up because we only know what we know, right? So it's taken a while for me to notice that sort of situation, that sort of behavior, that sort of mindset, and even coming into whole friendships over the last few years, that sort of behavior has still kind of popped itself up every now and then. But I have been very, very, very blessed to be open within myself to receive such great friendship, such great sisterhood. And I would say I'm not so much the gossipy, nasty, bitchy person anymore. However, the wounding that still does come up quite often is the resentment towards another woman who is higher, quote unquote, for those that can't see my fingers, higher than I. And so, once again, another invitation to look at myself going, okay, well, Amanda, why are you feeling that way? And it's most often because she's showing me the radiance that I have within myself. And of course, that's an even deeper initiation into sisterhood. When you can see that every moment where you could gossip, where you could try and bring someone down because of X, Y, and Z, as a moment to go within and see yourself and go, why do I feel like I need to say these things? Because that this is on me, not on them. They're just living life. Yeah, been very blessed in the learnings within friendship and community. And it's been a tough game, I'll admit. It's been rough for myself on my inward journey to see myself in these ways, to see myself in the gossip behavior, to see myself in the nasty, and choose to not be that way anymore, to then see the beauty within every woman around me. And I'm so grateful for it too, because it then has been given me the opportunity to be more open and vulnerable with women and been able to really hold them as well as let them hold me. Like there's that, oh, I can't be supported by other women because they'll take something from me. They'll want my boyfriend or they'll want my job or they'll want my people. And because I'm also that person who would, and this is thing that's happened forever, and I know it's a part of who I am, is I connect people all the time. You know, my friends become and like my two friends become friends and da 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 da. And so I've also had relationships or friendships fall because of that. So there have been times in my life where I've wanted to keep people away from each other. Like, no, that's my friend and that's my friend. You two can't be friends because then you'll shut me out. You know, there's awkward friendship triangles that do take place in an unconscious sort of nasty way. And realizing that that too is a superpower that I have, is been able to connect people, is to find two people and bring them together because they also need me. And so who am I to then keep them apart? So it's been a journey. It's been a journey navigating women, navigating sisterhood. And then on top of that, it's also been very opening because I have I don't have a label on my sexuality. So I can be attracted to women and I can be attracted to men. And we've just opened a can of worms here. So there's wounding coming through my childhood around homophobia, right? And so that was really squashed within me, and I didn't really ever look at that. And when I started to realize that I also liked women as well, that then put a strain on how I showed up in friendships because I was too scared that people would stop being friends with me, like women would stop being friends with me because I liked women. And so this navigating journey of how do I be friends with women from a really friendship, like I love you as a sister type of way, and them not judge me and think that, oh my gosh, she's going to hit on me, or, those sort of situations. So sisterhood for me is just been probably the biggest initiation into my authenticity because I've really, really had to heal myself through a lot of things, whether that is through the queer association or whether that is just from growing up as a nasty girl. And I've had fights. I've got friends. I actually have friends I've been friends with for years, and I have had like that type of um behavior with in the past. And we're still friends to this day, but we've grown and healed together. So we no longer act like that. But we've had those fights, and then we've broken up our friendship, and we've come back when we're more whole and been able to form an even deeper friendship, and it's happened a few times. And then I've also had a really good friend who I actually went out to dinner with on Saturday, and we both realized that this is the only friendship I've had. I've never had a fight with her. I was like, cool. I'm like, yes. So that's a different dynamic in there as well. Like I've got all these new friends, these over the last couple of years, new friends who I just feel like are my soul sisters. Like I was meant to know them. Like, and you included, Olivia. Like I don't know, I don't even remember how we met online now, but we did. And it's like you've been there the whole time. Like how was my life not had you in it? I don't know. And so there's those deep soul connections that are happening, and then there are actual lifelong ones that have gone through so much to come to today and teach me how to be a good friend, a good woman, a good sister. Yeah, and then there are ones that have been there the whole time, and we just, we just danced together in our little and our growth, and it hasn't been through fights that we've changed, but it's just been through support, which is really, really cool. So yeah,
What a
very
journey.
blessed.
Thank you for sharing all of that and for yes, that wounding is deep. And like you said, you're totally right that I think there is probably not a woman that is not touched with this type of wounding. And so I think we have to take it upon ourselves to reflect and have the awareness. And for me, I really got to a point of I was really sad that I had no sisters in a way, that I was alone. And I don't know if you ever felt this way, but I really related to the male. Like all my friends were men, and that was easier for me. I was easier to be seen, but I realized that that was just this deep wounding that had to be healed. And so it was a journey, and just like yours, and overcoming and identifying like who are you. It's almost like you have to go through this huge reclamation of your, like you said, authenticity. Who really am I? And then there's this whole piece of the sexuality, and what is that identity for me. And I think just having those friendships in the container that you can just be seen, and allowing those who, like you said, the dance, sometimes they fall away, sometimes they come back, but knowing and trusting that as you grow and as you feel like you are truly you, those people will find you. And like you said, I totally feel like I've known you forever, even though we've just met in a way. And those are so special and amazing. And I cherish. And it brings me though to the fact that you are now leading, and maybe you've done this for a while, but you lead sisterhood, women's circles, community in this way. And I just was curious if you could touch on what is the magic there, especially seeing that, yes, we all have this wounding. I think it's so beautiful and so needed to have a container where people can come together, be led, go into their intuitive sides, get messages. Can you share a little bit about these circles and what drew you to these, to leading them, to guiding them?
Yeah, sure. So, women's circles for me have been the place where I got to feel held and seen with women. That's how I began to heal my sisterhood journey, is putting myself in a vulnerable position where I was surrounded by other women who also felt wildly vulnerable because we're so used to being hated on or gossiped about or, all those types of things, and allowing ourselves to all be open and go and receive love and appreciation from sisters. Um, so touching back when I talked about my friend who came back from Amsterdam, it began there. She taught me to how I could be safe around women, how I could be safe and held from other women. And it led into years upon years, I guess, from there, momentarily holding circles and facilitating these spaces because I felt that if I needed it, so many other women did too. That I couldn't have been the only one that wanted to have a community of sisters. They wanted to feel so close to sisters as family. And it was interesting that we're talking about this now because I was thinking about the word friend the other day. And I thought to myself, I don't have friends because I've got sisters. Friends, the word friend to me feels quite disconnected in the way that I see friendship. And so when you become my friend or when we create a friendship, you're not my friend, you're my sister. Like you're closer than that, that's how I see. That's how I see friends and sisters. And I just felt like there's going to be more people out there that need this. That and the circles come so naturally. They are always well felt and well navigated. So when I do them, when I felicitate, and actually I did one yesterday with a sister. It was a collaboration, and it was really lovely. It was real that we were tapping into the energy of power and the individual power within ourselves and the collective power in the group. And that's the beautiful thing about when women come together, magic is created. Like there's magic everywhere, but when we all come together and we bring our power together, there is so much more that can take place in those circles because it's not just our own intention fueling the manifestation or fueling the intention of the space. Everyone is there for the same reason, and we all get to feel seen, we all get to feel held, we all get to create bonds. And it also comes back into the bringing people together. Like I didn't know three of the people that came yesterday, and my co-collab sister didn't know two of the people, well, three of the people that came either. And so we got to bring these women together who had never met before because we only knew each other. And I knew two of them, she knew three of them. And there was a totally other lady that we had both never met before. And it's in these like opportunities where we'll get to come together and realize that's why I needed to know you. That's why I wanted to know you. That's why I needed to know you. And the messages that get to be shared between each other and to feel like I'm not the only one that likes to be woo woo, or I'm not the only one that feels like this. I'm not the only one that had a cry today. Like, I honestly feel like sometimes the best support comes from a stranger who has just become a sister. Like, I've gone to circles and to retreats and to places with women, and I have connected so deeply with someone I'd met that day, and I have found the connection that I've needed to support me in something that I've been trying to find a support person for like 2 months. So you just never know, and that's the beauty of these circles. And I doing them online still has the same sort of effect as well. I've been doing them mostly online for on and off for the last 5 years, and that's mostly because I just have this way of finding people around the world. Like I think I know more people outside of New Zealand in this way than I do inside of New Zealand, which is makes me laugh. So yeah, it's just once again bringing people into each other's spheres, as in like SPHERE. Just yeah, that word mixed up in my head, and I was like, oh, I probably should spell that out. So yeah, bringing in people into each other's vortexes and understanding that when one feels it, another one does too. We're not separate from each other. We need sisterhood. That's why we lived in communities. That's why it takes a village to raise children. That's why back in the day we would all go into the red tent and we would all bleed together. And that's why we would, conjure magic together. It's no mistake that medicine woman and medicine woman. It all just makes sense. Like if you look into the beginnings of all of the indigenous cultures, women play a head role in everything.
Of course we
So
did.
yeah, like
Yes,
of course
like
we did.
yes. I'm sad. I mean, I'm sad that we're so far removed. I think there's again this flip in a way that will come and we're realizing and as women find women and we find this sisterhood that this will come more and more. And I love it. I think you're totally right. Like people just find you in those threads. It's like you're walking your thread and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, here's what you needed through this person and your life is forever changed. It's so beautiful. And I'm curious along this thread of how ritual and ceremony has supported you. So I know you've guided others, and I think a lot of us have probably participated. But if you can touch a little bit just on any specific rituals or ceremonies that you do that you feel like are really close to your heart, or any tips of how people can start to integrate these. Because I think a lot of this can be very simple. Doesn't have to be, I mean, I love a good circle. I love those moments, but just like day to day, how do we bring this back into our life?
Hmm. There are many ways that I can answer this. If we were to speak into simplicity, the breathing is a ritual in itself. If we want to go super simple, you don't need anything but yourself, taking a moment to close your eyes while you breathe, or just breathing consciously. That's a ritual. That's a ceremony. That's an honoring of self. And when we can go as far as the complex retreats with all the crystals and the candles and the cards and the and the plant medicine and all of that sort of stuff. So the way that I do ritual and ceremony sits in between. It can be as simple as the breath. Like I do love having a moment where I stop and say like the middle of the city and I just look up at the sky and go, oh my gosh, the magic. I can smell it on the in the wind, or I can see it in the sunshine or in the clouds, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, taking a moment, having a ceremonial breath for myself in reverence of this life, in reverence of this incarnation, in reverence of everybody else here. Like, how blessed are we to be living and breathing today? And then I do also love like having ceremony with myself where I set up my cards and my candles. I'll admit, since learning Akashic, I'm a little less cardy because Akashic is, in my opinion, way more fun. Uh,
I
but
agree.
I,
Yes.
yeah,
It's another level. Once you've experienced, you can't go back.
yeah, absolutely. Although I do have this thing where I just like to shuffle. And I often find that shuffling is enough. I don't actually need the card. I already get the messages through shuffling. But it's just that moment of pause, that intention where you're setting up whatever you feel called to set up. Mine always has herbs in it. I more than likely will have a cacao, and it's the prayer. I will say a prayer. We say karakia in Maori, which is what I would do. It would be in Maori. And as I was coming in today, I sat with my cacao and I was just giving myself in this moment some presents. And I was thanking, oh, I'm going to cry. Hold on. Ooh. Okay. I was giving Mama Cacao some presents, Papa Tuanaku, Rangi Nui. I was giving it to my spirit guides, ancestors, angels. I was giving it to the angels of the four corners and the original custodians of the land of which I'm on. Because I'm not standing or sitting on my homeland. This isn't where I'm from in New Zealand. I'm from a different part. So I like to give reverence to the original custodians, which is Ngāti Mahanga or Tainui. And so I'm not Tainui. And so I just think that's important to really just give everything, every breath, every moment, every spark of energy, any person or being that pops into the mind. Thanks. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for allowing me to have this moment. Although, yes, I do realize I'm creating it and I chose it. So thank you to me. But also, there are so many nuances in every single thing. And although we can't always recognize them, we can't say thank you to all of them individually, just a breath of thanks in everything. And allow a tear if a tear comes up, allow a laugh, allow just whatever, you know? It's hard to say what is the best ceremony, what is the best ritual sort of thing, because it is so personal. And it's taken me years of trying to do it right, to realize that actually it's whatever it is in the moment. And I was that person that I'd have to have all the crystals in the right place and the type of grid that I want on these sort of candles, and I'd have to sit a certain way. I'd have to have a certain card or a certain way that I made the cacao or whatever it is, which was beautiful because I had to go through that in order to realize that I didn't need it. So full circle moment, totally grateful for it. Yeah, so it's just when it comes to ritual, if this is something that you're wanting to bring into your life, if you want to go complex, go complex. Like if this is your confirmation to go all out there into the ceremony, like women's circle. Like I even was in a ceremony where my friend was like bleeding on the ground. Like, she was in her period, so she just didn't have anything on. She's like, this is how it is. And I'm like, girl, get it. Like I was in a ceremony where I was at the same one actually. She was bleeding and I had no top on. I was half naked. I'm like, why not? Because that's what felt like needed to happen that time. And that can be whatever you want it to be, or it can be as simple as driving in the car. Don't close your eyes, but driving in the car and taking a gratitude breath. That is a ritual of its own. Like the one thing that I find super, I Google every time I hear is, being a spiritual person, the right way to be a spiritual person. And it's like, well, are you breathing? Yes. Then you are a spiritual being, like spiritual person, because you're a spiritual being inside of a human experience. It doesn't matter whether you are in ritual, whether you are even conscious of the fact, but it's just a mere breath that you take means that you are spiritual. So that is a ritual and an invitation of its own.
Those are really lovely reminders and tips. Thank you. It can be simple, it can be complex. And also, yeah, just don't get caught up about it. Just be you. Just show up and do whatever you need to do. We all have different rituals, practices, what we're called to, some with water, right? It could be elemental, it could be so many things, and just trust that whatever you're led to is what you need in this moment. So I love that. And that retreat sounded very fun, whatever you went to, where everyone was just like, yes, I'm in myself. I'm going to show up as I want and just feel confident in that. How fun.
Yeah,
Um,
titties out, let's go.
yeah. Oh, thank you for that. And one of my last questions before moving into just a couple wild heart questions to close us out is I am just curious if you'd be willing to channel a short message for this Live Wildly community.
Absolutely. I'd be willing to do that. That would be fun.
Yes, whatever wants to come through. I'm so curious.
Let's all take a breath together, shall we? Being in that ritual of breath and feeling the presence of self, whether you have your eyes open or your eyes closed, that's totally okay. But just taking a deep breath in, just in gratitude and reverence for life, for beingness. So coming into this, I felt the word perspective, and I remember I shared that with you at the beginning, Olivia, and it's still very present here throughout this whole podcast and even into this moment of this message for the collective perspective, perspective and perception. There's a message here and an emphasis on we choose what we see, and it is within that reality that experience is formed. And so having that breath into perspective and the understanding of perspective, it brings back that table of what am I choosing? What am I choosing to see? And how could I choose to see differently? Because as we cast our eyes upon the table of our lives, seeing all possibility, every option is available and every polarizing option is available. So if you were in a position right now where you are not feeling too good about life, or you are wanting a change, it starts with you shifting what you see. And it's taking your eyes off of what you don't want and eyes into what you do want. It is the willingness to shift the perspective, shift the paradigm into possibility. Perhaps you're in a moment right now where you're feeling stuck and you don't see what is possible. But it is in the choosing to believe that potentials are available to you, that is where it starts to begin. Because no matter what you choose to believe, you are right. Because that is what is going to be created for you. And so when you decide to live life from a place of potential, as opposed to quote unquote reality, more potential and possibility will become available to you. As you move around your table, more options will come online. They'll become more visible in your field. You'll be able to feel and sense that there are other ways of doing things or more higher vibrational stuff available for you. I'm feeling and sensing now this message around settling. It's very, very easy to settle for what is either the easiest option or the most available in the moment, but quite often doesn't quite fit the bill. You know, there's that one red flag amongst the pool of green flags. In this as well, you get to choose. Do I want a pool full of green flags? Or am I going to settle for the one that's got mostly green, but there's still a couple of red hidden in there? And quite often when we get stuck in that settling mindset, we don't actually see that if we are a little bit more patient, or if we're a little bit more open with ourselves, or a little bit more willing to trust, the perfect option does arise. People will say there's no such thing as perfection, but you just get what you're going to get. But I like to challenge you and invite you to see differently. What if everything is perfect? And what if perfection is possible? Not from a place of the mind choosing perfect, but from a place of vibration perfect. What if you, as you are, as a whole being, as an essence, are already perfect exactly the way that you are? And with every shift and moment and change, you become even more perfect, even more perfect, even more perfect. What if your wholeness is exactly what you get to be? What if you are actually enough, just the way you are? And so changing the way that you see yourself, the way that you see life, taking the settling out of your reality and realizing you can have the perfect option for you, however that gets to look, it opens the pathways for more possibility. It puts more options on your table. But always remember that no matter what you believe, you are always right. Whether you are right or whether you are wrong, quote unquote wrong.
That was so nice. Thank you for doing that. And I'm going to sit with that perspective, possibilities, perfection, right? Pathways, all those P words really came through and feels so important to take some time to reflect on. So thank you for leaving us with that and for channeling that for us. And to close us out with these wild heart questions, the first one I always ask is, how do you live wildly?
How do I live wildly? I think that would be what is considered wild, really.
Yeah.
What is living wildly? And I honestly feel like I do that all the time. Like I actually use the word wild and wildly, like I'm wildly happy or wildly like all these things. How do I live wildly? Well, for me, that is being me as much as I can, honoring the moments where I don't want to be me, because they do exist. Uh, and I think what would be considered the most wild thing about me, if it was to come from an outside perspective, is the ability to question, um, question myself constantly. The inquiry process with me is pretty wild. Like I don't let myself get away with anything. nothing gets past me. And then in every, I need to take the glasses off. See, the human. I put the glasses on. I'm like, now I can't think.
Did
Goodness
it too
me.
early. Did it too early.
Yeah, fully. Living wildly for me is being able to turn everything into a blessing. Everything, even the heartbreak, even the death, even the most uncomfortable situations, even the trauma. Everything is a blessing in some way, and it comes back to that perspective. And that's what living wildly feels like to me, and being able to trust in that, being able to be moved by the energy, being able to do things and not 100% know why, but it like becomes obvious later. And you're like, ah, that's why I had to do that. That's why I had to say that. That's why X, Y, Z. So just having that full trust in life, trust in the universe and all the powers that be, the nuances that we don't always realize that are on our side and that are orchestrating things for us. The human, I feel like the human is the puppet in this big show that has been led by the divine. And so just letting myself be led instead of trying to control everything, which is a challenge.
That is probably our biggest challenge, but I can get on board with everything you just said. I actually just had a conversation about everything you just shared of like hindsight and just meaning of life, like that we trust in whatever happens. So I think that is the most beautiful way to live wildly and express that. So thank you for sharing. And who or what currently inspires you?
Who or what currently inspires me? That's a that's a loaded question because I'm constantly inspired day in, day out by living wildly, by being led. It's those aha moments, the the synchronicities that are like, oh my gosh, that's so wild. How did that even like, huh? Yeah, I live for those moments, which is why I think spirit talks to me a lot in synchronicity because I love having my mind blown because I get constantly inspired by that. I am inspired by the women that I have around me, my sisterhood, the groups that I'm in, the caliber of humans that I have attracted into my world blows my mind constantly. Like I just constantly am in just reverence of how did I get so lucky? How did I get so lucky to have such amazing friends? And they all inspire me, all of them. I have a friend currently who is she's about to start her course where she's teaching women how to become confident through abusive relationships and navigating narcissism through her own experiences. And I'm just like, wow, like the things that she had, the wisdom that she has upon this and how she speaks about it, I'm just constantly inspired by her and how she navigates her own journey and how she's now leading other people through that, other women through that as well. It's beautiful. And then I've got friends who are living out their fullest expression. And sometimes I'm triggered by it, I'm not going to lie. But then I am also come to that inquiry moment like, well, if I'm being triggered by them in their expression, obviously I'm not in mine. So where am I not showing up for myself? Which is yeah, just a way where I love to, like I said, be an inquiry and they inspire me constantly. Like, how can I see myself? How can I see myself? How can I see myself? And what do I need to work on next and within me in order to then help the next generation or help future women or yeah, just constantly. I couldn't even just pinpoint it to one person. There is just and like even through the land, even through music, even through my Te Reo class. So I'm learning Te Reo Māori, the language at the moment. And I'm constantly inspired by my classmates who are just, yeah, humans are just freaking amazing, in all honesty. When we really take a moment to see how blessed we are and how much every person is a blessing, it's hard to not be inspired by humans and by life in general.
I can get behind that. And you hit me with this. Wow. If we don't feel this way about those we're surrounding ourselves with, let's step it up or call it in or focus on
Mm,
that and also be a better human to ourselves of what are we not expressing, or what are we being triggered by, whatever that is, but use you as an expander of this life is really can be so grand and beautiful. And yes, it's hard and challenging and it's not going to be perfect, but we might try to make it, like you said, find that perspective. But yes, that's so important. Those around you are inspiring and breathe life into you. And that's just incredible. That's amazing. My last one is, what tips do you have for someone who is looking to follow their heart, but is scared or unsure where to start?
The first thing I would do is to look at why I'm scared. What is so terrifying about following your heart? What is the mind telling you is why you shouldn't? And then advocate for why you should. I'm not a big person that says should, like I don't really like to use it, but in this sense, it feels appropriate where your mind is going to say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. The fear is going to say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But like I said earlier, fear is an invitation. There's medicine in that. So that gives you an opportunity now to go, well, why shouldn't I? And then what is the opposite of that? How can I advocate for the opposite? Like, okay, so I'm scared to step out and start this woman's circle. It's full circle with all of that. I have this desire to do this woman's circle, but I'm too scared to do it. Like, why? Why am I too scared to do it? Because I haven't felt safe with women before. Okay, fair enough. Because I don't know how to do money payments or what I should charge or what I'm going to put there. Okay, understandable. But why should I? Because I desire community, because I know I need this circle, because I know there are other women out there that need this circle. I know that I have got something on my heart to share. Otherwise, I wouldn't be desiring this in the first place. So then, how do I lean more into the for category as opposed to the against category? So the fear is always going, like I said earlier, it could potentially, unless you're someone that has no fear, which I'm assuming someone out there has no fear, but for the majority of us, the fear will always be there in some form or another. We just get used to it. You just get used to moving through it. It comes at every layer of your being, from the beginning to, I don't know, the $1 million version, $1 billion version of you. There's always going to be fear in some way or another. And when you learn to accept that, that's when you start to become the master of your own reality, your own self, because you realize this fear is going to be here regardless. So I may as well just do the things I want to do. And how can I then use this fear to fuel what I am doing? How about I see fear as my best friend? Like, okay, cool. I'm so scared. That means that this is needed. That means that I'm probably going to do amazing. This means that someone's going to walk away with exactly what they needed, even if it's just me. Like, but what if no one shows up? What if no one shows up? What if you show up? What if you're the only person that actually that needed that moment in time, that you created this whole thing and you get to have that ritual by yourself? Oh my gosh, yum. Like, there is so many reasons why we're not going to step into these situations, but there was also so many reasons why we still should do that. And it's navigating what is your fear trying to say, and then how can you be in, oh, I don't I've just had a law, like a court office, like come into mind, where it's just like the plaintiff and the defendant, and the fear is like, oh, the plaintiff, and like, I'm gonna sue you, and then like like, this is interesting how this brain works and does that, and then you can like defend why it's a good idea, or however. I have no idea about court or law or anything like that, so I'm pretty sure everyone else can put the right places in the right places, but it's just how can you be on the defense of like, well, how can I advocate for the things that I want to do, and just take fear along for the ride, give her a cuddle every now and again, tell her that it's like, okay, I get you're going to be here, but I'm also choosing to feel safe. I'm also choosing that I'm going to do this anyway. So you're either on the bus or you're off. Are you coming or not? You're going to come probably. So, all right, well, let's just keep going in this direction anyway.
Yes,
But
I
yeah,
love that. It's so important to normalize that everyone is going to have fear. How do you use that fear to fuel you? I think is what we have to get to the point of. How can you still move forward without being crippled by that fear? The fear can teach you, the fear has things to share, but ultimately you are in control and you are separate from your fear. and you're still worthy and to pursue whatever that is that you are desiring. So that was a great reminder. Thank you for sharing more about that and how someone could help, help with that. And so lastly, I've kept you here long enough. What an incredible episode that we just did. I am super excited to put this out and just share and have everyone listen to this. So why don't you tell us where people can find you and what you have going on?
Yeah, of course. As you were talking before, it was 1:11 over here too. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I mean, it's 1:12 now, but when you were talking, it was 1:11. Like, yeah, 1:11. But yeah, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this open conversation and being able to share. It's been really great. You can find me on Instagram at Amanda Lorin Intuitive.
Lastly, thank you, Amanda. Thank you for your time, for your wisdom, for being the channel that you are and showing up today.
Thank you. I really appreciated this time and space. And it's how we're talking about hindsight before. I'm also sitting going, I see why. I see why this space took place like today and the things that we got to talk about. So I really appreciate your openness, Olivia. Thank you for having me here.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for listening to the Live Wildly podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It goes a long way to helping gain new listeners and fills my heart to see your reviews every time it comes through. It just keeps me inspired and going on this journey. And if you'd like to learn more or follow Olivia further, you can check me out at www.olivia-ashley.com. And just there's a lot there that you can check out and you can learn more about the podcast episodes. You can also follow along on Instagram at Wildly Olivia or at Live Wildly Podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you listeners, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again.